I'm so thrilled that the ballroom is filled. I'm so thrilled that you're all here tonight. They wrote me prepared remarks, and those of you that know me know that I probably have not read my prepared remarks particularly well. I will read them. We have some thanks before we get too far down the path. First, we'd like to thank the Hansen Lecture Series and the Hansen Foundation for Enhancing Communities for funding our event tonight. And we'd like to thank the Department of Economics for hosting this as their finance symposium. And we'd like to thank the Entrepreneurship and Social Innovation Initiative, which I guess is thanking myself. But I'd like to thank myself for thinking that this was a good idea. But I couldn't do that if I didn't start by thanking our president. President Riggs came to me a year and a half ago over the summer and said, "Drew, we'd like to start a program." I said, "Okay, what are you thinking?" She said, "I don't really know. I was thinking maybe we could have a conversation about it." And Provost Zappi and I and Dean Ramsey and I and a large committee and Joe Lynch and the Alumni Relations and a very large group of our faculty talked about what can we do to teach entrepreneurial thinking, creative thinking, and by that we don't mean just start a business, make a lot of money, be profitable, though certainly we do mean that. What we really mean is how can we as Gettysburgians tackle change? How can we tackle hard problems in challenging ways? How can we address difficult things and rise above them? And so that's kind of what we've been up to. And those of you that know, just out of show of hands, how many of you have participated in any entrepreneurial event, class or otherwise, in the last year and a half? Incredible amount of people. I have to thank my student leaders, Gabriella Bucci, Caroline Glennon. We could not do anything without you. I'd like to thank Liz Miller for being particularly helpful today. Liz has been unbelievable. And most of all, I'd like to thank Mary Haggerty Ursum. Mary is a class of 90, yes? And Mary and I met at a session that Janet put on in New York City for finance professionals. And for some reason, she invited me to speak. And I spoke, and I got up and I said something like, "I'm a real disciple of Derek Gondaway's." And Mary stood up and raised her hand and said, "Me too." And we've been friends ever since. Mary is the chief of staff and head of operations for Operation Hope, and has worked with John Hope Bryan for 20 plus years. And was instrumental in us getting John to come and speak on campus. I've had the great pleasure of spending the day with John. I have to tell you truthfully that it's been a bit transformative for me. He has said some phrases that have resonated with me in ways that I'll carry for a long time. We will certainly talk about them in class tomorrow and Thursday. John Hope Bryan is a man that I just came to know, I just learned about, and remarkable, really, I don't think does it completely. I'm going to let you judge for yourself. I don't feel that I need to speak more about it, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about him. The American Banker of 2016 magazine called John Innovator of the Year. He said, "John Hope Bryan is an entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, and prominent thought leader on financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and financial dignity. Bryan is the founder and chairman and chief executive officer of Operation Hope." I guess that means he's in charge. He's the chairman, chief executive officer of Bryant Group Ventures and Promise Homes Company. They are the largest for-profit, minority-controlled owners of institutional quality single-family real estate in the U.S. His work has been recognized by the last 5 presidents he has served. He has advised the last 3 sitting presidents. He's going to talk today about some of that. He's responsible for financial literacy, becoming the U.S. policy for U.S. federal government. In 2016, John became the only private American citizen to inspire the renaming of a building on the White House campus, when the U.S. Treasury Annex building was renamed the Freedmen's Bank Building. Founded by Abraham Lincoln, someone we all have a great fondness to here, the legacy of Freedmen's Bank has become the narrative for Operation Hope, to help all people in the invisible class become fully integrated in our nation's economy. John has been recognized as one of Atlanta's most admired CEOs in Atlanta Business Chronicle in 2018. His latest book, The Memo, which we've got copies for all of you that asked for it, and if you'd like one and we didn't ask for it, come speak to me and I will get one for you. My requirement is that you, 1, read it, and 2, pass it on. The Memo, 5 Rules for Your Economic Liberation, debuted as the #1 release in Budgeting and Money magazine on Amazon. Tonight we welcome John with an open heart and a spirit that is kind of really powerful to us. I had the great privilege of spending time today with John. We drove around the battlefield and we talked about what happened in this place, and we talked about the people and the power. And all of you that know me know that I'm fairly sensitive and sentimental about that whole issue. And I can tell you that John, at his core, I think, believes the same thing. And so it's my great pleasure, and please give me a warm round of applause for our speaker, John Hope Bryan.
Good evening. Oh, you see we have a problem already. The Bible suggests be hot or be cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out. Translation, even God doesn't like mediocrity. You're going to do something, you're going to do anything, do it with both feet, do it with every ounce of energy that you've got. Good evening. Good evening. You're going to show up, show up. So today has been draining for me. I want to first thank Drew, who is an American innovator and a positive disruptor, and he's helping to create a whole new generation of leaders. And he's founded a program here in entrepreneurship that will be a national model and will become a common thread in the universities and colleges throughout this country. And he and the president have conspired to do something great, and they don't even know they did it, because they did it because that's the way they live their lives, because they live their lives with greatness. The president of your great college, can you please stand up for a minute, please? Drew, stand up. Drew. It's also beautiful, I'm sure it's sort of not said, but said but not said. It's beautiful that the president of your college is a woman in 2019. I think there's also a legacy of Lincoln and Dr. King and Dr. Dorothy Height and all the heroes and sheroes who fought, so this would be normal. They fought hard, so this would be normal and not worthy of, hopefully in some point in our lives, worthy of comment. Today, I want to thank Caroline and all the heroes and sheroes that worked with me today and handled me and kept me going. I'm going to talk about Caroline in just a minute, because she said something very special to me, but today has been extraordinary, but mostly extraordinarily draining. I have cried today. And just so you know that I'm vulnerable to you and I'm being transparent to you, I'm also broadcasting this. I have a page that has 75 million video views in the last 2 years, and there's 1 million followers on my different social media channels, which are listed here. And this video will probably pick up over 100,000 views over the next few weeks. I want everybody around the world to see what's going on here. So I'm telling you and I'm telling them, and I'm saying this so everybody can hear it. Today I cried. Today I was tore up and both inspired. It takes a lot to drain me. I mean, a lot. And this got inside of me. To Typically, it's only family that can get me going. Most things I just sort of brush off. But you're operating every day on a hollow ground. You're living, if you want to be morbid about it, in an active cemetery. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the sacrifice. You're not reading a history book. You're living in it every day. You know, I'm going to tell you about Lincoln, and I'm going to tell you why I think Lincoln's so important. And I'm going to talk about Dr. King. But I'm also going to tell you about a couple other people that don't get mentioned. But before I do that, I'm going to come back to the trauma, because that's what I experienced today in the drainage. And here's why you shouldn't feel sorry for me, because rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's a scientific fact. I love that I feel everything. Don't feel bad when somebody feels everything. Feel bad when they don't. Don't feel bad when somebody cries. Feel bad when they don't. It's not love or hate that's the problem in this world, because that's a feeling. The problem is radical indifference. When no one cares enough about you to hate you, love you, or to even move out of the way. Radical indifference. The death knell of the soul. And we're not, as I said earlier today, in a classroom where we're having a conversation. And some of you hopefully will know what I'm about to say, because I said it a couple times, hopefully it's stuck. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So energy absolutely matters. So Caroline, where is she? So we're sitting in the back, preparing to come out. I've been asking her questions all day, and she's been giving me these sort of normalized answers. I guess you give your professors or something. And I kept pushing her, and finally she said something that absolutely quieted me. So I've been drained today, and I've been quieted. Two things that are really hard to do. And Caroline said, and Mary Haggerty, thank you for the alumni. Thanks for bringing me to your home. Stand up, Mary. Mary's been working with me for 20 years. Love you. We call Mary white chocolate. That literally means what you think it means. Because she's been to Africa with me at least 30 times. She's actually been to South Africa, more times than I've been. We have offices in South Africa. She pioneered that office. She pioneered the office in Saudi Arabia. We were the first to teach women financial literacy in Saudi Arabia. Also the office in the United Arab Emirates, UAE. She built homes and watts for Habitat for Humanity, which I thought was, she's absolutely nuts, but she did it and thought it was just normal, because it is normal. But it takes somebody who's abnormal to think something is normal. That's how you change the world. Now to Caroline. So Caroline says to me in a moment of clear elegance of thought, you know, America went through 9/11, and it robbed us of a sense of physical safety. Never thought about it like that before. And then America went through 2009, the global economic crisis, and it robbed us of our sense of financial security. And now you have an America that's traumatized and balkanizing, throwing up walls, and trying to protect itself from all fears, because our faith in ourselves, in our storyline, has been shaken. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but just, if you agree with me, can you just stop for a minute and give her some love for that? That is brilliant. So what does that have to do with this, and why is it important for you to know what I felt today? We're sitting in a moment in history. But history doesn't feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. It takes 20 years to look back at a moment and say that was historic. At least 20 years. You're living in the land of Thaddeus Stevens. This university, this college would not exist. And I know it's a college. I think of you as a university because you've got all these minds of thought. And you're unleashing all these schools of leadership into the world. So you're a college, but you guys think like a global university. Thaddeus Stevens inspired this college and another. In the 1930s, it became what it is today, sorta. There was a medical college that failed, another medical college that merged here. During the Civil War, your economics of this college were affected because the southern states that seceded from the Union also took students with it. So you had an economic crisis you had to manage here at this college. But Thaddeus Stevens' reputation, who was a local attorney in town, it changed over time. It wasn't always the vaulted leader that we view today. The view of history changes as our times change. Thaddeus Stevens was an amazing dude. We talk about Lincoln, and it's important, but he's an amazing guy, an abolitionist, a member of the Whig Party, and then left the Whig Party. That was the party that came before the Republican Party. And was absolutely against, a white man, absolutely against slavery in the 1800s. Do you know how much isolation that created for himself? And then joined with Abraham Lincoln for the creation of the Republicans, which back then was against slavery and for everything you would imagine to be good and right. And they had a heck of a time getting support. Abraham Lincoln, if you do some research, failed at everything you could imagine. And won the election by a thread. And did not think that the election would trigger dissent in the country. Did not think it would cause a war. And then you get into this civil war, brother against brother. Abraham Lincoln's wife's brother was assigned to kill Lincoln. I want that to sink in for a minute. Talk about a family squabble at Christmas. Abraham Lincoln, by the way, it's okay to laugh, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be. It's okay to breathe tonight. Abraham Lincoln's, think about this, wife's brother wanted to kill him. We get into the war and we know all of the big narratives of the war story. You even know the Gettysburg story, at least I hope. But there are two stories that really, to me, define this experience. And it's not Lincoln. And it's not Thaddeus Stevens. It was 1863's to 1865's version of your president and this man. John Burton, is Clara Barton and John Burton, get that right? Clara Barton and John Burton. War and Peace. John Barton, Clara Barton, John Burton, 70 years old, war veteran. took a group, they called it a militia back then, of citizens from Gettysburg, which I imagine included students, because students were involved with the defense of your city with the Union Army. This is really about as personal and close to you as it gets. John organized a group at 70 years old, went out to go fight. They tried to give him a safe place to fight. He refused, went to the front line, injured 3 times, and ultimately died of his injuries. But he lives today. There's a statue out on the battlefield of this man. And I touched the statue on my tour today, and I've just recovered about 5 minutes before I came up here. That's how much energy I felt. Now you say it's a piece of metal. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Energy matters. I could feel and see images of the Civil War as I was touching the symbolic hand of John. And as I got back in the car and I was actually crying, trying to hide my tears so my host wouldn't feel uncomfortable, they take me around the corner and they tell me that Clara created what became the American Red Cross down the street. The group of women who organized to create the American Red Cross that's now helped people around the world were inspired by a war that happened in your city. 2 people, 2 institutions that are now celebrated came, man and woman, local and global, bigger in death than they were in life, came from right here, 100 yards away, certainly no more than a mile. Let me give you another story. I'm in Jordan, and there was the guest of Queen Rania and Crown Prince Haakon of Norway, and I was asked not to talk about religion and don't get too sensitive about these personal topics, and I said, well, not talking about it is part of the problem. So the camera was, Jordanian TV's rolling, and I said, about a mile from here, Jesus Christ was baptized. Okay, you got it. You guys are a hard audience. I'm going to say it again. I was told not to talk about religion in Jordan. You know, the Middle East. Okay. And I said, about a mile from here, Jesus Christ was baptized. And I paused, like, intentionally, just so everybody could choke properly. And then I said, but within a mile of where Jesus Christ was baptized, the Prophet Muhammad ascended into heaven. I don't know if you knew that. It's deep. Now, the world is 25,000 miles round, at least. What are the chances? Think about it. What are the chances that within less than a mile, this has occurred in the same space and place? Either God has a sense of humor, or he's trying to tell us something, or both. I go inside, and I was told the young ladies who are all practicing the Muslim faith would not talk to me. I couldn't hug them. I couldn't touch them. Don't be offended if they don't respond back. And I asked the little girls, what did you think about what I had to say? Not a peep. I asked again, not a peep. For 5 minutes I asked, not a peep. Finally, a girl raises her hand. She's 12 years old. I said, what did you think about what I had to say? She said, I think you were saying that life's like a mountain. And you can sit on the Judaism side of the mountain or the Christian side of the mountain, or you can go up the Islamic side of the mountain or the Hindu side of the mountain. And she mentioned all the religions, but we're all trying to get to the same place, the top of the mountain, where when you are at the top of the mountain, you're actually unified and the view is all the same. Another girl raises her hand and she said, I think you're trying to say that I can be me and still allow you to be you. These are 12-year-olds. All of a sudden, all the hands go up. And Queen Rania walks in and she says, what's going on here? And the little girl said, well, we've been told not to talk. We've been told to pre-program what we have to say and what we think, but this guy seems to really be interested in what we have to say, and we've got a lot to say. And it seems to me that young people are the solution to our problem, and the solution to optimism, and the solution to faith, and the solution to bridge building, and the solution to entrepreneurship, and the solution to growth, and that older adults stuck in their ways are a bit of the problem. Can I get an amen? The only problem with a new idea is sometimes the death of the old one. Are we having a conversation yet? I find it interesting that John and Clara were within a mile of each other. And the story I just told you were within a mile of each other, halfway around the world. And it's the same story. It's symbolic of the same thing. But let me get more detailed. In 1865, March 3rd, something magical happened, but let me roll back to January 1865. January 1865, General Sherman and Secretary of War Stanton were sent to Savannah, Georgia, because Atlanta had been burned down in the March to the Sea. And they met with 20 former slaves, black ministers. They said, what do you want after slavery? Did they say they wanted a welfare program? This is a question. No, thank you for your boldness. Absolutely, you not even hesitate. Absolutely not. I just made you an honorary black man. Absolutely not. What's your name? Andrew. Andrew. Love you, man. Very good. Look at that. See that? Come on now. Come on. Oh, that's too hard. Andrew. Just relax. There you go. Okay, there you go. Took it a little bit too far. And did they say they wanted a handout? No. They said, we want land. We want to do for our... You see, that wasn't a black answer or a Latino answer or an Asian answer or a white answer or an Indian answer. It wasn't a rich answer or a poor answer. It wasn't a conservative answer or a liberal answer. It was just an answer. They gave them Field Action 15, which was during war powers and executive order, that allocated 400,000 acres from North Carolina all the way south to what we call Miami Beach along the coastline. And today, coastline beachfront property is fantastic, but in an agrarian age, not so good. You grow your wealth from the land. But we didn't complain about it. We didn't argue about it. The fact is, you put your seeds into the beach property, you wake up tomorrow morning and your crop's in Jamaica. Oh, I'm giving you guys some good stuff. It's going right over your head. But we didn't argue about it. We didn't complain about it. Black folks have been doing so much with so little for so long. We can almost do anything with nothing. We worked it so hard. No Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, no Snapchat, no cell phones, no modern communication. But 1 month later, 1,000 former slaves took possession of the land, worked it so hard that General Sherman said, my God, they're so industrious. Give them a mule. The modern day interpretation of give them a mule is go to the farmer and endow them with a tractor trailer or agricultural machinery that is automated, if not AI. That was February 1865. March 1865. Abraham Lincoln sits down at his desk and signs a piece of legislation inspired by a black reverend in New York City. Legislation was called the Freedmen's Bureau Act, which created colleges and hospitals mostly, but also created the Freedmen's Bank. And now we're about to get into some interesting territory. Because I saw a statue earlier that was about the Emancipation Proclamation. We celebrate that. Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation, which, by the way, only set some people free and was strategic to the war efforts. I'm not complaining. I'm not deriding it. I'm just giving you a literal fact that it was a strategic tool in the war effort. It set those free initially who were already behind enemy lines. It's beautiful. But we celebrate that. There's statues about it. But wait a minute. He created a bank called the Freedmen's Bank to, quote, teach freed slaves about money. Now I want you to tie that to 3 months before. Land, machinery, by the way, 40 acres and a mule. It's not a symbolic story, it really happened. 30 days later, a bank to finance the land and the mule, to endow your savings, to finance your operation, and to teach you about the free enterprise system. And then Abraham Lincoln had the gall to say, I want blacks to have the right to vote. And Booth said, you will not live to another birthday. That is a bridge too far. This is why I say Abraham Lincoln is the most progressive politician ever to walk the face of the earth. 3 months, he was trying to set it all right. And he got killed in April of 1865. This is a very important point. I'm going to come back to it in a moment. You with me so far? By the way, I'm the only American citizen in the history of this country to ever rename a building on the White House campus. When I went back to the White House and suggested that they need to rename the building where the Freedmen's Bank was located, it was called the Treasury Annex Building for 100 years. It's now called, if you look on your phones, the Freedmen's Bank Building, across the street from the White House, because Lincoln wanted to be able to go up in the residence, look out the window, see the candles burning on his most important social experiment, which was located catty-corner from the White House. By the way, the first federal building that was ever created was what? After the White House. First federal building, Treasury, first one. The only one located next door, shares a lawn and shares a tunnel underneath to give you some indication of how important commerce was to the creation of this country. And every federal building created since was first created in the Treasury Department. Weights and measures is about, help me, money. Labor Department is about money. The Housing Department is about, literally it all comes back and came out of this one department. Okay, let's fast forward now to Frederick Douglass, who you know to be a abolitionist. Not true. It's a businessman. He owned $6 million worth of real estate in Baltimore, Maryland, rented it out to working class blacks, which gave him the financial independence to then become an abolitionist. He put up $10,000 of his own money to run the Freedmen's Bank after Abraham Lincoln was killed, and it failed in 1874 after $53 million was put in by 73,000 former slaves, Union soldiers, some of which who battled here, because Frederick Douglass thought it was that important. And when it failed in 1874, it was said the failure of this bank did more to set free slaves in America back than 10 more years of slavery. Now you fast forward from 1874 to 1968. Here's my friend, Ambassador Andrew Young, my mentor, Andrew Young, with his friend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee, on the Poor People's Campaign. Dr. King said this, I'm here to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of war, racism, and poverty. What he didn't say was, I'm here to save black people. I'm here to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of war, racism, and poverty. He had attacked racism, attacked the war effort, and now he was attacking poverty as he pivoted, realizing, by the way, he wasn't avoiding the black issue. He was saying this was not a black campaign, this was an American campaign, and you can't be America if black folks are not free. You can take no pleasure in the fact there's a hole in my end of our boat. We all are in this mess together. We're getting closer. Just bear with me for a minute. Memphis, Tennessee, the Poor People's Campaign, and Dr. King said this, you cannot legislate goodness. You cannot pass a law to force someone to respect you. The only way to social justice in a capitalist country is economics and ownership. Did I do that too fast? Let me do it again? I got low self-esteem. I'm actually talking to you. Do you need me to do it again or not? This is a direct quote from Dr. King that you never hear. You cannot legislate goodness. You cannot pass a law to force someone to respect you. The only way to social justice in a capitalist country is economics and ownership. 1968. Do you know there's more poor whites in America than poor anybody else? Fact. Then and now. Here's what I know. Whether you're white, black, red, brown, or yellow, everybody wants to see some more green. Can I get an amen? When white folks have a headache, black folks have pneumonia, but we're all sick. That's 70%, oh, thank you for the charity laugh. 70% of Americans live from paycheck to paycheck. 70% of all Americans live from paycheck to paycheck. And if you don't think I'm right, think about the federal lockdown 2 months ago. 800,000 federal workers of all socioeconomic and racial backgrounds who within 1 month were on a mental breakdown edge because they were 2 paychecks away from poverty. You with me so far? It's all going to tie back. I'm framing out a storyline that you may not have thought about. 1874, the bank closes. Dr. King emerges in 1968 with a movement about eradicating poverty. He's killed April 4th, 1968, the same month as Abraham Lincoln, 150 years later. What's my point? And here I'm bringing it home. It's not like black folks or brown folks or struggling people or middle-class people with too much money at the end of their money are dumb or stupid. It's what you don't know that you don't know that's killing you, but you think you know. You're not dumb and you're not stupid. You are brilliant. If you're a single parent household, if anybody in your household is a single parent, raising children, putting you through college, they deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for surviving in this world, because here's the issue. You never got a memo. There's a memo on money. There's a memo on entrepreneurship. There's a memo on job creation. There's a memo on how you run this college. There's a memo on how you run your household. There's a memo on how you raise children. There's a memo on wealth creation. There's a memo on job creation, and you're not dumb and you're not stupid. You just never got the memo. That's literally true for my African American brothers and sisters because the bank was closed. Please change the slide. Whatever you were told about poverty is incorrect. No, I'm just going to be impolite and say it's wrong. I don't care who you are, for good reasons, you were told poverty was financial. That is not true. Now, you should be at this moment at the edge of your seat because either you're going to walk out and leave or I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. Sustenance poverty is financial. That's about a roof over your head, food on the table, reasonable health care. Sustenance poverty. You with me? All other forms of poverty are state of mind. I'm going to go back to what I said to you earlier. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Energy matters. Your intellect is on the left side of your brain, but the endorphins that fire hopes and dreams and creativity and aspiration is on the right side of your brain. Half of all poverty in the world, not black people, not white people, not rich people, not Americans, not Puerto Ricans, not Germans, everybody, half of all poverty is low self-esteem and lack of confidence in yourself. For those who were in the session earlier, I apologize if I'm about to repeat something you now are an expert at because you actually listened to what I had to say. You can't run Bible study without confidence. You can't drive your car without confidence. You can't do homework and lead a group without confidence. If you have a pet at your house, a little puppy, you love that puppy loves you. They would do anything for you, you do anything for them. And initially that puppy will pee on your carpet and tear up your furniture, and anything they get their hands or mouth on is destruction 101. Because the puppy's trying to figure out who the alpha is. And until that puppy realizes that you're crazier than them, they're going to go crazy. Yes or no? So you must exert confidence and show leadership And then at some point, the puppy goes, oh, he's nuts. And the puppy calms down. This is as basic as raising a puppy and as complicated as leading a company. Confidence and self-esteem. Let me now get deep. Let's assume now you're African American. Let's assume now you've had 300 years of slavery, Jim Crow, being told you are not, I'm being recorded, anything. You know what I'm trying to say. Now you have never got the memo on free enterprise and capitalism. You were so-called set free with no guidebook of how to lead your life, not educated, not encouraged, not inspired. Your mama and your daddy was never accorded the reputation or the title of Mr. and Mrs. It's 1970, not 1870, not 1970, and you're still accorded with disrespect. And I think it's not unreasonable to think that 80% of black folks are clinically undiagnosed depressed. And to my white friends, I say, if you went through half of what black folks went through, you'd be crazy too. Are we having a conversation yet? Are we having a conversation yet? This is not a black story. This is a human story. But you don't get it yet. That's fine. Let me go one step deeper. The second part of poverty is role models and environment. Joe, we never met before, right? Correct. All right. So, Joe, Jesus, you can sit down, Joe. It's okay. Damn. It ain't that serious. But he makes my point. Jesus Christ. High confidence, high self-esteem. Look at me straight in my eye. What do I want? He wants to do a management buyout right now. Jesus. Calm down, Joe. Get him some tea. So Joe, growing up, you saw a man somewhere that had a business suit on or was in a profession, was doing something aspirational, was succeeding in some way, and you said, gee, I can do that. Yes or no?
Yes.
You heard that? Say it again.
Yes.
We never met before, right?
Correct.
All right. Ms. President,
Yes.
you saw a woman growing up at some point. Being a domestic engineer is really important. Raising children is very important, probably the most important thing on the planet. Beyond that, you saw a woman who was bilingual, who was able to raise children and also be a professional, who was doing something, achieving something, maybe wearing a business suit, maybe had a business card and a briefcase, I don't know, but she was kicking rear end and taking names, and you said, gee, I might be able to do that. Yes or no? You never saw a woman.
No.
You never saw a woman.
I saw a man.
You saw a man. Tell me about it.
It was all male role models that I was surrounded by, not women.
So where'd you get the idea that a woman could do it?
They reached out and told me I could.
They reached out and told you, and you never saw a woman between then and 2019.
Oh, well, yeah. I thought you were talking about when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Yes, I have.
At what point did you see a woman and you said, well, my God, she's incredible? Just
My 20s, great.
20s. Okay, so you're human, you live on this planet, you're not a Martian. Okay. So at some point, so you had male role models until you were about 20, and then when you're about 20, 25, you saw a woman doing incredible things and said, I can do that. Whew, okay. He was like, don't come to me. Have we ever met before? At some point, you saw a woman achieving great things and said, maybe I can do that too, yes or no? Young man, we ever met before?
Yes, sir.
What's your name?
Kaide.
Kaide, a beautiful, that's an African name, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Nice to meet you. Are you African or you just picked up the African name?
And my father's Nigerian.
Nigerian, fantastic. So at some point you saw a black man doing great things, achieving great things, maybe it's your father, maybe it was somebody else, and said, my God, I need to dream bigger dreams. I can do great things too, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Say it louder.
Yes, sir.
Say it loud.
Yes, sir.
You see what I'm saying? This is not a black story or a white story or a Latino story or a male story, or this is just a human story. It's called role modeling. So let me ask you a question. Everybody's aspirational, yes or no? Everybody's aspirational. Everybody wants to live a better, more prosperous life. So if all you see in your neighborhood is symbols of success are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers. Now let me frame. There's nothing wrong with being a professional athlete, but LeBron's not scalable. There's nothing wrong with being a rapper or a singer, but Jay-Z's not scalable. Oprah Winfrey's not, I love her, she's a friend, she's not scalable. She has 100 or 200 employees. She probably has 400 employees. Jay-Z's probably got 100 employees. I'm trying to create a solution for 100 million people who didn't get the memo. I can't afford to have 100 million people trying to be 5 people. And nobody should want to be a drug dealer. By the way, there are no retired drug dealers. Okay, you guys are a hard audience. By the way, let's just get a real talk here right for a minute. A drug dealer is dumb, but he's not stupid. A drug dealer understands import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. Can I get an amen? We're going to have some church up here tonight. You're not talking about dumb people. You're talking about misdirected people with bad role models. That drug dealer could be Steve Jobs. Different role models, different environment. I'm getting ahead of myself. Role models are very powerful, but this is even more powerful. Environment. Environment basically means if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. Aspiration. That's a code word for hope. The most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope, which then leads to opportunity. So here's poverty, crappy self-esteem and crappy confidence, crappy role models and a crappy environment, which means you see the glass of life as half empty, not half full, which means you never leave your porch. Here's wealth, high self-esteem and high confidence, positive role models, an enabling environment. You see the glass of life as half full, not half empty. You see opportunity everywhere. The lights have come on the right side of your brain where the endorphins, where creativity and hope is, and everything changes in your life, which is why I love credit scores. Let me now pivot. Do you want to hear my story or the data story? And I'm going to begin to wrap up and do Q&A. Do you want to hear my story or want me to go to the data? Okay. So I'm going to do this real quick. You guys, we're good so far? You enjoying this? So I'm in South Central LA, where I was born to Juanita Smith and Johnny Will Smith at Good Samaritan Hospital. And my mom and dad divorced over money when I was 5 years old. When I'm 7 years old, thereabouts, I'm on the porch of my uncle's house, my cousin's house, and I see my uncle riding on a bicycle past me, and I see a truck hit my uncle and drag him down the street until he was dead. I think I was 7. My uncle was trying to make a little extra money and went to go sell some marijuana in another neighborhood, not realizing there was a word called turf. And when he came back to our neighborhood, the folks concerned about turf in the other neighborhood followed him, and unfortunately, he was killed right in front of me. Now, I was told for a long time that he was hit by a drunk driver and it was an accident. And then later on, when I could handle it, I was told the truth. When I was 9 years old, I went to Compton, California to live with my mother, who had bought her own home at 15502 South Fraley Avenue in Compton, California. My mother's name is Juanita Smith. I was afraid of the gangs, but I was more afraid of my mother, which is really important in the neighborhood where I grew up. And my mother told me she loved me every day of my life. Nothing's more powerful than a child being told they're loved by their mom. So if you end up having a child at some point, make sure that's your first action, is telling them you love them every single day, whether you were told that or not. My dad owned his own business for 54 years, so I said, he had a sense of yes, I am, and yes, I can. I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm 9 years old. My best friend was George. He was smarter than me. He was an A student. I was a C student. By the way, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. got a C- in public speaking from Crozier Seminary. That's literally true. So if you're not doing all that good in your grades, you might be Dr. King. So don't worry about it. Just keep striving. So my best friend was George, and I wanted to be like him, but he didn't know who he wanted to be like. So he hung around with my next door neighbor whose nickname was Tweet. Tweet was the local thug. Tweet was 18. So George started hanging around Tweet, talking like Tweet, acting like Tweet, culture, and got shot and killed on a street corner with Tweet. My second death, murder, before I was 10. I started taking life real seriously. I started paying attention to everything because it appeared the consequences were not just when you were 30 or 40 or 50. They could happen to you when you were 10. I went to school one day, and this banker who was Caucasian, wearing a blue suit, a white shirt, a red tie, showed up and he was teaching financial literacy. It was the first year of the Community Reinvestment Act. He was forced to be there. He didn't want to really be there. The government had forced him to come. I didn't really want to be there. He didn't want to be there. We had that in common. I never saw a white man with a suit on unless he was a detective, and then it was a bad suit. And I don't mean like a bad suit. I mean like a really bad suit. And this guy was really clean, and he was clearly doing well. He wasn't running after anybody or being chased by anybody. And I asked him, and keep in mind, there was no skyscrapers in Compton. There's no office towers in Compton. There's nobody with a business card. There's nobody wearing suits. There's nobody on a salary. Keep this in the back of your mind. I asked this guy, sir, what do you do for a living, and how did you get rich legally? He said, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. I said, sir, I don't know what an entrepreneur is, but if you're financing them, I'm going to be one. I went and opened up the dictionary to the word entrepreneur, figured out what it was, a French word, figured out what it was about. You're so blessed to have a class on this. And then I said, I want to be an entrepreneur for what? Building wealth so I can then create solutions for my community and jobs. Well, what's that called? A philanthropist. So I looked that word up in the dictionary. And by the way, now the endorphins kick in the right side of my brain about creativity, about what I can do, how I can do it. I started seeing my neighborhood differently. The liquor store sold candy, Mac's liquor store. I went to a guy, I'm 10 years old now, I went to Mr. Mac said, you're selling the wrong kind of candy. Mr. Mac, he says, go away, little boy, I've got a college degree. I said, that's nice, I've got cavities. You guys are tough. I mean, you should be rolling in your street. I'm just knocking it down. I'm killing it up here, killing it. And Mr. Mac's like 6'2", so I'm like, completely intimidated. By the way, young people in here, when you try to do something, first the world will ignore you. Then they'll criticize you. Then they'll try to copy you. Then you win. I'm going to repeat that. First the world will ignore you. Then they'll try to criticize you. And then when you start killing it, they are going to try to copy you. And then you win. Back to the story. So, and I'm going to do this for 5 or 10 more minutes. I'm going to wrap it up because you never want to be the old guy in the club. Oh, finally got a laugh. So before y'all kick me out, I'm going to leave. I got my man Joe. Joe's dependable. Joe laughs right on time. So I'm standing in front of Mr. Mac's liquor store. You're selling the wrong kind of candy. He said, look, you got a lot of chutzpah, young man. I'm doing really well. I said, yeah, you don't have any competition. So he said, look, I want you to sell candy for me. I want to hire you to work at the counter, the candy counter. I said, I don't want that job. I want to be a box boy. He said, that's the worst job I've got. That's the job I want. People are always trying to buy you off your own aspiration. That's the job I want. Okay, fine. I went to go work as a box boy. You know, the person when you go into the store and there's somebody pushing inventory to the front of the cool box, that was me. I worked 3 weeks and quit. Why? It was cold there? No. No. Huh? Oh, I had a better idea. But why did I want to be a box boy? Why work 3 weeks and quit? Yes, sir. And what else? See what you don't want to do? Be better than him? That's actually a very good answer. Now, that wasn't it, but that was a very good answer. No, not to be better. You were close. You said logistics. What else?
Whatever you want and you move on.
Nope. You guys are being too philosophical. I'm a capitalist now. See what's selling, what's not. Yes, go ahead. Know what? That's it. What's your name? Jennifer. Brilliant. so I can know the inventory. What's the wholesale rate? What's the retail rate? What's selling? What's not? Is my philosophy and my thought process that he was selling the wrong kind of candy wrong? What's a markup? What's his source of inventory? It's on the side of the box. There's a shipping label on the side of the box. I wanted to work long enough to confirm my theory, and I quit, went home, borrowed $40 from my mother because she wouldn't give it to me. She charged me interest. And then my mother's straight up capitalist. By the way, my mother's credit score today is 851. My mother's not black, she's green. I mean, I asked my mother, was she gonna get married again? Mama said, if I get married again, it's gonna be a BMW. I said, Mom, I didn't say what kind of car you want. I said, are you gonna get married? She said, I know what you said, baby. If I get married again, it's gonna be a BMW. A black man working. So, so my mother loaned me this money, went to Irish food store and Smart and Final where he bought his inventory. They thought it was a nice school project. When you're young, he will give you anything. And then they gave me some racks. I came home, ate through half the inventory, ate candy to this day, most of it, and came home, sold the candy, made $300 a week, found girls, lost the business, recurring theme of my life. But but I realized I can do anything. And I put the liquor store out of the candy business in 6 months. Now, you imagine what happens to the endorphins on the right side of your brain when a 10-year-old puts the liquor store out of the candy business. Now, let me pivot to my grown-up story. I had too much confidence. I thought I knew too much. By 18 years old, I was overconfident, and I was homeless for 6 months of my life. The guy standing in front of you is honored by 5 presidents, served 3 from both parties. I've known 8, traveled the world, 100 countries, all the stuff that was said nicely by Drew in the introduction. But I want to tell you, what really defined me is I was homeless and lived in my Jeep for 6 months. And I had to pick myself up, brush myself off, believe that God don't make dirt, that I was unique and I was special, and I could do anything I want to do in this world, but I had to get out of my own way. That I was my biggest asset and my worst liability. It was a rebirth. And I went to go run a private banking firm and grew it from 0 to $24 million a year in business, $23 million a year when I was 23. Did a management buyout, realized money wasn't enough, founded Operation Open in 1992. Now, let's fast forward. 4 million people served, $3 billion invested in underserved neighborhoods. The guy who made this suit, I put in business. His name is Drove Clothing, Ryan Taylor. He's doing $1.3 million a year on a $35,000 investment. We have literally $3 billion of those investments around this country and around the world. We changed public policy 4 times, and none of that's enough, which is why I'm going to announce a special initiative to change the world before I leave here tonight, to come back to Gettysburg where the nation was changed, to propose we change it again. But let me stop now and tell you about the work we're doing right now to finish what Abraham Lincoln started. So we launched Hope Inside of bank branches, grocery stores, big box retailers, houses of faith. We're moving credit scores 120 points in 24 months because nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. It's funny, but it's serious. Do you know that half of African Americans have a credit score below 620? Let me let that sink in. You have a business idea. You've got a patent even. You're brilliant, but your credit score is 590. You can't get a small business loan at 590. You can't get a small business loan at 600 or 610 or 620 or 650 because it's risky, unsecured credit. So we think it's racism or discrimination or bias. The banker can't tell you what it is for fear of being sued, but the reality is you're not going to get credit, which means whether you're getting an auto loan or a home loan or consumer credit, credit cards, whatever it is you want, half of Black America is locked out of the free enterprise system, and half of employers won't hire you and before they check your credit. But let me step back for a minute, because this is not a black story. This is everybody's story. What do white rural America and black and brown urban America have in common? Let me help you. I want you to close your eyes for a minute. Everybody close your eyes, and I want you to think what am I describing? Whether this is black, brown, urban, or white rural. Here we go. A check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lending store, next to a renting furniture store, next to a pawn shop, next to a liquor store, and a church down the street trying to make it all feel a little bit better once a week. That's called therapy. Open your eyes. Which was I describing? Black and brown urban or poor white rural? Both. It is entirely possible that black and brown folks riot in the streets and my poor white friends riot in the ballot box. Oh, you didn't get that. Behind every social crisis is an economic crisis. Before every social crisis was an economic crisis. Flip it. You never had a world leader that wasn't an economic leader. Check all my facts. Don't believe a thing I'm saying. You can't run this campus without economics. You can't run a church without economics. You can't run your household without economics. You can't, help me out here. Nobody's going to take care of your snotty-nosed children. It's called a daycare without paying a bill, unless it's grandma because she loves you. You go get your hair cut, gentlemen, they want a fee. You go get your nails done, ladies, they want a fee. You can't do anything from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night. No, when you're sleeping, you pull the covers over those government-issued sheets. I'm being sarcastic. You grab that, used to be a clock, now it's your government-issued cell phone, right? It's your government-issued cell phone. You should be offended because you pay for it, or somebody in your family pays for it. Am I talking to myself? You can't turn on the lights. You cannot get into your car. That's a car note. You cannot drive down the street. That's called gas. Whatever you're doing is an economic transaction, but do we understand money? All of our problems, let me drop the mic now. All of our problems in America are 500 credit score neighborhoods. I know it because I've done the data. I've mapped zip codes and I've mapped credit scores, every credit score to zip code in America. The poorest state in America is what? Mississippi. The most unbanked state in America is what? It's easy, Mississippi. The lowest credit score state in America is Mississippi. 10 of the worst counties in America by crime, 3 of them are in Mississippi. Guess what 3 counties have the lowest credit scores in Mississippi? The same 3 counties. Do you know there's never been a riot in a 700 credit score neighborhood in all of America's history of any race? Because 700 credit score neighborhoods just want to go shopping. Again, she is not, this lady here has not broken a smile. I just killed it. I killed it. She's like, no, I'm not going to smile. Nope. I'm dropping, I don't care what you say, I'm dropping the mic all day and all night. I'm going to get you to laugh. Real talk now. All the homicide rates, all the dropout rates, all the low levels of education, all the depression, all of the health problems, all of the challenges are compressed in low credit score zip codes of any race. Race and geography are neutral and non-relevant. And all of your aspiration is in a 700 credit score neighborhood, all of it. That's where your stability is, your 2-parent households are, that's where your families are, that's where the parks are, that's where people take vacations, that's where you have Whole Foods, that's where all of the aspiration, you got that? Ambassador Andrew Young said this: to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the definition of slavery. Some of my friends say we should have socialism. Interesting. Even if you want to distribute money like a socialist, you got to first collect money like a capitalist. All wealth in the world that didn't come from war or crime or government contracting came from poor people. Here's your point of inspiration. Walmart was Sam Walton with a pickup truck and a storefront and a high school education. UPS was Jim Casey with $100 and a bicycle. I can do this all day and all night. Every business that you love, Essence Magazine, whatever it is you love, It goes back to some woman or some man with a dream and $10 in their pocket, and they built this thing that we now resent. People say, oh, I hate rich people. No, you don't. You hate rich people till you become rich. What you hate is a gamed system. What you hate are people that are taking advantage of the system. What you hate are corrupt leaders. So why don't you change it? So now we come to you. I want you to be the change you want to see in the world. I want you to stop being an expert at what you're against and start becoming an expert at what you're for. A complaint does not pay a bill, and picketing doesn't solve a problem. I want you to figure out what you're against. I want you to become the leading expert in the world at that thing, and I want you to go kill it. And then once you kill it and you succeed, I want you to give back. And I want you to do it at radical scale. There are 3 types of people in the world, like 3 types of birds. There are eagles, there are buzzards, and there are turkeys. Eagles don't fly in packs. You've never seen a flock of eagles. An eagle raises their children differently. An eagle's nest is made of sharp little twigs. Message: you start pushing up against the inside of that nest, you need to get up and go get a job. Thank you. You cannot be 48 years old and living with your mama. You can be 48 years old and giving to your mama, not living with your mama. Eagles are high altitude birds. They take the road less traveled. They understand self-love. If I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. If I don't have purpose in my life, I'll make your life a living hell. The most important person for capital is human capital, starting with you. And I keep pointing to you because that's a conversation that you mastered when we had. Self-love. 3 types of people like 3 types of birds. I talked about the eagle. Now let me talk about the buzzard. The buzzard is a low altitude bird. I'm not looking at you for any reason. A buzzard is a low altitude bird. Buzzards love packs. Buzzards are always stepping on your head to elevate themselves. Always player hating, never player congratulating. Always got something negative to say about somebody. But the worst kind of bird is a turkey. Because a turkey's got wings and can't even fly. Somebody then said, oh, I've seen turkeys fly. No, I don't mean 30 feet in the air and come down, I mean fly. This is what happens, this is like illogical debates. All a turkey does is profile. Translation: trying to be something you are not. So here's my question, and I want you to answer this with every fiber in your body. I want you to answer this with all of the ancestors that are surrounding you on this campus, with all the souls that gave up their life so you might have life, from Abraham Lincoln, from Claire and John, all the way up through Thaddeus Stevens to the current leaders, through all the heroes and sheroes, Dr. King, Dr. Dorothy Height, Coretta Scott King, all these people who gave their life so you might have life. Here's the question for you. What kind of bird do you want to be? Eagle. I want to be an eagle. Can I get a job? No, you can't get a job. I need you to answer like you're applying for a job. I need you to answer, this is career day, and somebody showed up to offer, they're passing out $300,000 first-year positions. But you got to answer right. What kind of bird do you want to be? Eagle. Okay, I'm out.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I don't even know what to say to that. We're going to have a quick question and answer period. Anybody have a couple questions they'd like to ask? We have some here. We have in the front row. Here, we'll get a mic coming.
Yeah, I asked her at one of the earlier sessions, what do you think positive disruptors have in common, or how would you describe them?
A positive disruptor, I'm a disruptor. They're more interested in good and bad than right and wrong. I'd rather be good and wrong than bad and right. So right and wrong are man's law. It was perceived to be right and legal to keep blacks from the right to vote in Mississippi in 1955. It was both as right and legal. It was the law of Mississippi. But that didn't make it good. What's right but not good will have its day but won't sustain over time. Dr. King once said that he did not feel bad by disrespecting or not adhering to unjust laws. I believe that's what he meant. So you, in your intuition, ladies who are here, you meet somebody and you have an intuition about them, yes? A woman's intuition. It's something you feel in your, what a man would call it a gut feeling. Women are closer to God, emotional creatures that give life, men don't give life. So they can feel this, because they're emotional creatures, this connection to a higher power, this intuitive connection. And that intuitiveness, I think, is everything, is how I make decisions. So when you intuitively know that something is good, then you do that thing, even though society may say it's not right. Because, as Dr. King once said, the arc of freedom is long, but it bends toward, the arc of justice is long, but it bends toward freedom. And vice versa. The arc of freedom is long, but it bends towards justice. So you've got to be comfortable walking the road less traveled. You've got to be comfortable being the only person who has a position, and that's okay. You've got to love yourself. You've got to be okay being okay. I'd rather you respect me and learn to like me than like me and never respect me. I'd rather you respect me and learn to like me or not than like me and never respect me. If you are obsessed with being liked, you won't get anywhere. So a positive disruptor is someone who walks the road less traveled, who has a deep sense of purpose and passion and meaning, who is concerned with justice and not just us, who is aligned with good. So I described what right and wrong is. We describe what good and bad is. Good and bad is the global, it's actually the universal law of the universe. It's never good to trip an old blind man crossing a busy intersection. It's never good to throw an old lady down a flight of stairs. I'll give you a dramatic example, which makes it really obvious. There are things that are just not good, and you can't rationalize them. And it's global. And opposite is also true. There are things that are absolutely good. So I think that real love is the nurturing of one's own or another spiritual growth, as an example. And the anti-love is the repression of one's own or another spiritual growth. So if somebody says they love you, but says you ain't S-H-I-T, then I'm not sure, I think you need to reevaluate that relationship. If somebody says they love you, but they're beating you, then you need to reevaluate that relationship. If somebody says they love you, but you're not going to amount to anything, you need to reevaluate that relationship. It doesn't make them a bad person, it makes them a confused person. In a blind town, a one-eyed man's king. If you don't know better, you can't do better. So I can only give you what I have. If I don't have wisdom, I can only give you my own ignorance. So if I love you without ignorance, guess what I'm going to give you as a gift? That's probably deeper than your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next. Back here.
Going off that question, I want to ask about something you said earlier about intuition being superior to kind of fault our brain, and something that you said kind of resonated with me. That analysis is the paralysis of our brain. How do you suggest we
itself as action in your life. Courage is nothing more than your faith, which through your fear displays itself as action in your life. That all of us are shaking our boots. Everybody's a little insecure, myself included. But vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. But very few of us are tough enough to be soft. So when you can be transparent to the world and admit your own I don't knows, you're actually suggesting to the world that you actually have great wisdom. So when you ask that question, my response to you is, it's already begun, because you asked the question. So now you've opened yourself up to the universe, and you're going to now have solutions come to you even when you're asleep, because now you're an open vessel, because we're all energy. So this is going to be a life journey for you, because you've been living in your head probably your entire life. Most people have. And we've made the mistake of letting our brain, everybody should go read the book by Econ. I think it's called The Power of Now. And essentially he says that we got one foot in yesterday, which doesn't exist. That's the past. If anything should convince you that we're spiritual, this is it. We have one foot in yesterday, which doesn't exist. That is the past. It doesn't exist. You have one foot in tomorrow, which doesn't exist. So I can't be happy because I was molested. I can't be happy because I had a bad childhood. I can't be happy because I grew up in Iowa. Whatever.
I didn't grow up in Iowa.
You didn't grow up.
Fair enough. A lot of people would agree with you on that.
I will be happy when I get married. I will be happy like when I graduate from Gettysburg. I will be happy when I get a great job. I will be happy when I get a Ferrari. No, you won't. Because if you're miserable now, you're going to be miserable then. It's going to transfer your miserableness. It will just take time to catch up, which is why people love to cope. I'll get to that in a second. So if yesterday doesn't exist and tomorrow doesn't exist, all that we have is this present moment, which is what they call the present gift. So if you spend 20%, there's a minute and 60 seconds in it. If you spend 20% of that, if you spend a third of that time worrying about yesterday, and a third of that time worrying about tomorrow, what do you have left to actually focus? And if your brain is in control of your life, now you have the paralysis of analysis. It thinks about something, rethinks about it, analyzes what you thought about. When you sleep, you can't turn it off. Now you are anxiety-ridden, and I think the disease is mostly dis-ease. There are some hereditary elements because you lived in the wrong place and they polluted the water and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of disease is dis-ease. So if you want to save yourself, the first thing you need to do is quiet yourself. Get rid of the noise. Get rid of the noise. And here's how you get rid of the noise. You acknowledge that something I said tonight to you about your somebodyness makes some sense to you. And you reclaim your childhood idealism. Because you were born perfect. And the world taught you racism, discrimination, bias. The world taught you you can't, you never do. That the world taught you to use your brain and not your heart. I want you to go back to your childhood idealism. And I want you to think about that gut feeling you got about everything. I want to take a little bit of that woman's feature of intuition and inculcate it in you, because man and woman were once one. We were separated so that we could come together. And once you get there, I want you to let your intuition guide every decision, and let your brain be a GPS device to take you where your intuition has told you need to go. Is that too deep for you? I need you to, your brain doesn't give a dang about you. Your brain just wants to survive. So your brain lives in the conscious mind, where ego, self-esteem, pride, all that stuff sits. Your unconscious mind is where faith, love, charity, compassion, joy, belief, all the things that are important are in your unconscious mind. So I need you to get back to your intuitive self and let that decide where you're going to go and what you're going to do, and then let your brain, you take control now of your brain, and you tell your brain, like a GPS device, I'm heading over there. I need you to map out how we're going to get there safely. Make sense? Take control back of your life. I'll give you my card after we're done. Stay in touch with me. That was a very courageous question. And that just suggests that you have the master business plan for life, which is getting out of one's own way. What's my greatest asset? Me. What's my greatest liability? Me. No one can hurt you more perfectly or help you more beautifully than you can. We light ourselves on fire every single day. 3 ways to live. Suicide, and by the way, if you don't think you can die breathing, then you don't really understand suicide and hopelessness. You meet somebody who has no sort of life in their eyes, they're living dead. So suicide, coping, and healing. Let's take suicide off the table. Coping, that's what 90% of society does. Drinking, drugging, sleeping too much, partying, shopping, it's whatever it does, whatever it is, to not deal with our mess. But if you can quiet the noise and deal with your own stuff, take control of your life, you start healing, and then you start commanding and controlling your own life narrative. I hope that helps. Yes.
Who else? Anybody else?
Where's the mic? Over here. She needs a mic. You can ask the question. I'll try to listen.
Yeah, I can be loud.
Okay.
So if we are suggesting that half of all poverty is a result of low self-esteem and low confidence, thank you. So first off, if we're assuming that half of poverty is the result of low self-esteem and low confidence, what does that mean for the institutions that have been in this nation since its foundation that have systematically oppressed certain individuals and prevented them from achieving wealth?
That's a whole other speech. You want to bring it back for part 2? I'd be happy to talk about that. Look, I'd rather talk about what I can do to set you free than obsess about all the things that have imprisoned you. Because even if we have a beautiful conversation about it, it's not going to change it one little bit. Without question, there's systemic oppression. Slavery was bad capitalism and systemic, intentional repression. I argue with people who think it's personal. I don't think it was personal. I think it was about business, just bad business. And it was about destroying somebody so they can control it for economic gain. But rolling over that 1,000,000 times and understanding it, to me, is less important than helping you escape from it and breaking generational poverty with you being free, because rainbows only follow storms. So the good news is, if you went through that and you can get to the other side, nothing can stop you. I take no for vitamins. Nothing bothers me because I was homeless. I went through all this stuff. So what are you going to do to me? Tell me no? I think we've got to make our pain part of our lessons for life, and not something we obsess about. The other reason I don't want people obsessing too much about it is those who have real wealth love people who don't have wealth obsessing about, spending all their time focusing on the problem. They love it because it leaves all the wealth making to them. I want to set you free so that you can go achieve anything ever you want. I'm going to give you one example of a free mind. So I wanted to prove my business model in Operation Home. So June of 2017, I started a company called the Promise Homes Company. Make a long story short, all my friends in Atlanta, Georgia, civil rights leaders, all this stuff, they're experts in civil rights, social justice, racism, all this stuff. I have a philosophy and a theory that I've shared with you tonight. People say, that's not possible. I walked into Atlanta, Georgia. I've been there for 9 years, at that point 8 years. I'm a guest. I walked into Atlanta, Georgia with a company that had 0 assets in June of 2017. The Promise Homes Company today is the largest minority-controlled owner of single-family rental real estate by a minority in America. We have $100 million worth of real estate. I own 700 homes in Atlanta, Georgia, and Middle Florida. I lease those homes out to working-class blacks and browns and anybody else who's in the neighborhoods where I own. I then take the residents who live in those homes. I give them financial literacy counseling through Hope Inside, who I pay to do free financial counseling for my residents. And as the people get more financial resiliency, I reward them with a gift card to go shopping for groceries and for household needs. And as you raise your credit score to 700, I reduce your rent by 10% permanently. Then I turned to the maintenance, and there's $5 million, last time I checked, in maintenance contract that was contracted out to a national company. I broke that up and said, no, only local companies will get these jobs. So now plumber, electrical, landscaping, heating, roofing, I probably missed something, painting, but I didn't say that, which is all a one-year certification at $25 an hour job, now creating local jobs and contracts for minorities who live in that neighborhood at 25 bucks an hour for living wage. And the more homes I buy, the more permanent philanthropy I can embed in those neighborhoods. And if you live with me for 3 to 5 years, you lease from me for 3 to 5 years, I'll let you buy the house that you were renting from me. I want to grow that to $1 billion company in 2 years. But I had 0 assets 18 months ago. Now, I think I can do more by growing that to $1 billion company and running operations over here and doing this over here to set people free and give them opportunity and give them self-determination, then I can become an expert in all of these systems for our oppression, which, by the way, are real and aren't going anywhere in all probability. So I encourage people to pick the lane that they love. Do what you're passionate about. But if all of our institutions are set up to be defensive in an offensive world, I don't think we're going to lose. We're going to win. So basically, people who are oppressed, women, minorities, whatever, we're experts at what we are against. We're experts at surviving in a world hooked on thriving. And we had time to talk about this. I break down the economics of both surviving and thriving. But the point is that you just got to decide what's going to set you free. And I just decided that more opportunity is what I'm going to deliver in my lifetime to the world. I don't think I do enough, by the way. You didn't ask this, but I'm going to volunteer this. I think I failed. So in the next 2 weeks, you're going to see a new solution for me that I think will allow me to help 1 billion people over the next 2 years. I won't say much about it now, but just hopefully we'll collaborate with the college. It's commitment making, and I'll tell you more about it later, but my goal now is 1 billion people that we're going to help around the world. And that will, in my opinion, break up the systems you're talking about that will go right around the systems. We obsess every day. We look at the TV set. We scream at the TV about the president and Congress. We scream at the TV. Why are we waiting for the president and Congress to do anything? To do anything to change our lives? So we're going to take our nation back. I'm bold enough to say I'm going to take my nation back. And I think you should be the bold enough to say it too. I guess you want to do one last question? Or if I wore you out?
Please,
Thank you for that great question, by the way.
stand in the middle here.
What do you think the most significant thing an educational institution can do to create equals?
Allow you to fail. That's it. Encourage you to experiment and allow you to fail in this environment so that you're not afraid to fail in that environment. What you guys are doing here is creating a family. There's really only one good reason to go to Harvard and pay that ridiculous amount of money. There's only one good reason. You're not going to get any better education than here. There's only one reason. It's a club. That's it. And the class of 2018, wherever college or university you go to, is going to hook each other up for the next 30 years. It's relationship capital. We never get a chance to talk about that, but relationship capital rules the world. Who do I do business with? My relationships. Who do I call? My relationships. Who do I back up? My relationships. How do I get to this college? Mary Haggard, who went here and had a relationship with Drew, once Drew gets on you, he's all over you like a cheap suit. You just can't say no if you want to. I didn't say yes, I just surrendered. I hope you've enjoyed this. I gave you everything I got. I'm going home.